So hopefully that should be the case. Let me see. Yes, I can see myself, but I do not hear myself. Just checking real quick. Let's see. Is there any sound? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There is no sound. Is there? So let me check real quick. There should be some sound. That is surprising. Yeah. So let me stop and try again. Oh, okay. There is sound. Thanks for confirming. All right. So if there is sound, then let's move on. So welcome to this blank page. So actually, if it is the first time you're joining that session, what I'm doing. So, and by the way, I'm Florent, working at DevRel with a focus on drivers. And these sessions, and it will be the last of this kind on this topic at the very least, is on the Golang driver, right? Because Neo4j, as you may know, has 5 official drivers, one for Java, one for .NET, one for Python, one for JavaScript, and one for Golang. And that's the one I've been focusing on for the last 5 weeks. And I'm doing a real-world.io backend. And what is real-world.io, you may ask? It's basically a medium.com clone. And the advantage of that, it's quite a big application to implement. So I won't implement the whole thing, because that wouldn't be very interesting. I just want to give you a feel of how it feels like to use the Golang driver with Neo4j. And hopefully the experience, the developer experience, is consistent enough that it wouldn't be too much different from using drivers, the official drivers in other languages. Of course, the idiom might be a bit different, but the whole concept surface should be the same. And thank you for confirming, so in Slack and on the chat, that it works. Thanks, appreciate it. So as I was saying, I'm based in Paris, France. It's currently freezing outside, so all the more reasons to stay home. And you should stay home anyway, right, given the pandemic. And let's dig into this session. Let's continue what we are doing. So as I told you, this is a medium.com clone. This is real-world.io. And you got plenty of choices, right? There's a nice thing about it. If you want to explore a technology, whatever it is, you have many examples for front end, for back end. And the way it works is you have, great coding weather, exactly. So, close to the laptop, warming our hands with the warming laptop. That's very nice. And so this API spec here is actually a Postman collection. So that way you've got the specification of the API that is used by the front end and back end, and that's how you can mix and match, the different implementations, and they work flawlessly together. And if you follow the links, you will end up with a Postman collection that you can import, and you will end up with many requests to implement. And as I was telling you, I'm not planning to implement them all during the live streams because it would take a long time, but rather, focusing on the first ones. So we covered the register endpoint before, and now we're on the login one, basically. So we register a user, sending an email, password, username, and we reply with some headers. Same thing with login. So login is the one we're currently focusing on. We send an email and a clear text password, and we try to match that and return the response with some with a token specifically that expires after some point. So that's where we are right now. And so let's dive into the code now. And yeah, and we basically won't leave the IDE until the end of the hour, I believe. So let's close everything and just give a recap for those who joined for the first time. So what I did first, my main dependency is Go driver. And so I'm using Go modules, which is the most recent way of specifying dependencies. You might have used GoDep or other similar tools in the past. Now you can use Go modules directly. And as you can notice here, this is not generally available yet. It is still in a beta version, and I upgraded after the last live stream, by the way, so I will mention a few changes between the alpha I was using and the beta 2, but those are small changes, so migration should be easy. And there's a goal here, as far as I know, is that the driver should be released and aligned with the other drivers. All the other drivers are already released for 4.2.0, and those versions for the Go driver will be released in a stable way before the end of the year. That's what I heard. But you know, again, take this with a grain of salt. It might not happen, but I think that's the goal here. So that's my main dependency, and JWT as well, because I didn't want to re-implement everything for generating a JWT token for authentication. So yeah, basically those two, and the rest, I mean, those three here are for testing. So Ginkgo and Gomega, and we will see in the test, bring me you know, familiar structure for my tests, and Gomega bring me familiar matchers, you know, to compare strings, compare objects in a readable way, I would say. And finally, test containers is a family of projects that helps you to interact with Docker images very nicely. So I think the most popular one must be the Java test containers project, which is very handy. In Golang, we have several options. We have the luxury of being able to use the Docker API directly if we want to, because Docker is written in Golang, so there is nothing that prevents us from using Docker directly. I like test containers because the API is quite nice to read, quite easy to discover. So yeah, that's my personal preference here. And so yeah, so those, and we will see them in action right in the test we've had so far, and the test will continue to write today. So those are my two production dependencies. JWT is a Go driver, and make sure, by the way, to use the /v4, the way the module versioning works in Golang. Whenever there is a new major version, you need to specify it as part of the URI, otherwise it wouldn't work. So be sure to include it like this and specify the matching v4 version, the last one being the beta 2. All right, so let's have a look. So far we've got obviously the main function that starts our server, that looks for some specific environment data, so the Neo4j location, basically the instance location, so the URI and credentials. I could add also the database, because as you may know, Neo4j 4 is multi-database now. I have something I could add. For now, I'm just using the default instance. That's something I might revisit later. Not too complicated to do, so yeah, maybe I will do that later. And once I've got everything I need, I just instantiate the driver, give it to a user repository, and have my controller, so to say, that will handle requests and sends back HTTP responses. So that's my main function here. So far it's quite simple, because as I have told you, if we go back to Postman, I'm only at the second endpoint, right? I've not done the 31 endpoints yet, so I might have more handlers in the Golang vocabulary later, but for now I only have a simple one. And if I have several ones and they all need the driver, I will have only a single instance of the driver. So that's usually what the recommended setup is. The driver is kind of a singleton, and you can have as you can open sessions within a thread, so to say. Don't share them between threads, but the driver can be a singleton and sessions can be bound to specific threads or Go routine. And for the HTTP stack, as you may notice here, I'm just using the standard stuff. I'm not using any fancy dependencies here. I mean, your mileage may vary. Pick whatever stack suits you best. In my case, I just want to go with a simple implementation and try to minimize dependencies. But obviously, it might not be as production ready as a real app. So yeah, I'm just using the net HTTP package here to start my server, give it the controller, and just start on this port. That's basically all I do. So that gives us the main entry point of our application. And if we look, let's look at test then. So I'm using, as I told you, Ginkgo. Ginkgo is not a standard test tool, right? So there need to be some plumbing to translate the Ginkgo test structure so that the standard test runner understands it, and you have to, once per package, and actually there is a Ginkgo CLI to help you generate this this overhead, this extra code. But basically that's what the standard test runner sees, this test, and it actually delegates to Ginkgo to run the specs. So that's how the translation works. The standard Go test runner sees that, and the Ginkgo test runner will then take over, parse your test suite, and generate a nice report whenever tests fail or succeed. But that's just some plumbing you have to do once per package. So in my case, I've only had to do it once so far because I'm focused on users. And if we look at, let's say, at the user registration, because it's a complete one. So for some reason, I have commented code here. That's interesting. But so it happens here. I have a pretty standard handler. So a handler is just an alias for a function that takes a response writer to write data to the HTTP response. It takes an incoming request. I read the request body and marshal it into a user registration, which is basically a user being username, email, password, and then calls a repository to store it into the database. And hello everyone, yeah, just also catching up on the chat. And yeah, let me have a small break here just to read the questions. So there is one about how to approach while you are a commercial company and not a charity. So I think, I mean, there should be some way for you to find a form to contact Neo4j directly, and you will be routed to a sales team near you, I believe. Otherwise, we can, yeah, we can take it offline because I'm not completely sure what the best way here is. Because yeah, just a precision, I joined the company 2 months ago actually, so I'm still quite new. I don't know all the processes yet, but I'm pretty sure there must be something online for you to tell about your use case, and then your request will be routed to a pre-sales or sales team, I think. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question. If not, I'm sorry, I don't know all the processes yet. And so if we look at here, we just have this handler. So back to our user registration that delegates to the repository to store into Neo4j database, which is the interesting bit for us, right? We're not here to write HTTP apps. We're here to show how to use a driver. And if we look at the driver, so you'll see this one is the one we are currently working on, but this one, the registration is complete. What we do, we have access to the driver. How? Because basically my user repository implementation, so my struct, as a hold of a driver, and I can just open a session. By default, I assume write sessions, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because then I explicitly, so never forget to close the session, defer, make sure that this is called once enclosing scope, in that case the function is over. It might be an error, so I override the error if there is a problem closing the session. So there are probably some smarter way to compose the possible error here with the new error there, but let's keep it simple for now. And so you open a session, you close it towards the end with this defer keyword, and then you can open with read transaction or write transactions. and within the transaction, then you can run your Cypher statements. There is a shorter form that we discourage quite a lot, which is called session.run. But if you do that, so you can pass directly some Cypher string and parameters, but if you do that, you lose all the retry capabilities, etc., etc. So that's why I'm trying to show here only write and read transactions, which are a bit more verbose, but then you get a lot of things for free. Like this function can be retried if something bad happens and the transaction fails. So that's probably one of the biggest selling point of it. And if we look at persist user, well, here I have a hold of a transaction, so I can just have my query string, some parameters. In that case, I hash the password, of course, before storing it to the database, and then I run it and get a user persisted. And that's basically the whole implementation. So nothing too fancy. Hopefully the concepts make sense. And yeah, so, and if we look at the test, I'm just gonna focus on this test because that's most interesting. So logs user in is what we're working on right now, but let's look first at this one, registers user. So I've got, so I call my register user, and then I expect some things, right? I open a session that I close towards the end, using defer again. And this time I'm using read transaction because I'm just interested in getting results, right? I call this repository, and I expect some results stored in the database. And so I make sure towards the end, so I read the transaction, return the results. I mean, if there is any error, I return the error. I expect a single result because I start with an empty database, and I will come back to that in a second. And then I map the result otherwise. And so the result of the read transaction will be, propagated here. So what I return, either an error or the user is there, and it will end up there. And I will get, if everything goes well, I don't have any error, and it should be the case, I get a user, and then I can compare it to what I was trying to persist. So username to username, email to email, that's quite easy. And then there is a tiny difference here with the passwords, because the password is in clear text when we want to persist it, but it's encrypted when we store it. So that's why we cannot compare them directly. We have to make sure they match. And given it's using bcrypt to hash the password, we have to call this built-in function here to make sure that the clear text and the encrypted version match. Not that they are the same encrypted string, because that's not the case. You can encrypt the same password several times, you wouldn't get the same hash, but they somehow match, And I'm not an expert in cryptography or mathematics, so don't count on me to explain how that works, but that works. And the question you must ask at this point is, yeah, that's cool, you execute a requery, but where is the Neo4j instance? And I'm glad you asked, because that happens in the P4H, right? Because I'm using Ginkgo. So Ginkgo provides you with all this nice structure we're used to, we're familiar with, so in Golang as well, because by default the standard test runner doesn't have this before after hooks, which is quite annoying in my opinion, but well, that's just my subjective preference here. And what I'm using here, I'm using test containers Go, which is, as I told you, a way to interact with Docker containers. So what I do is start a Neo4j container, get the port, which is dynamically allocated. So I want the ball port of the container, and I want the dynamic port, dynamic local port, and then I rebuild the address. And from there, I can instantiate my driver. And I make sure to close my driver after each test. And that way I've got a driver talking to my container. And if we look at the container code, it's quite simple. It's just these few lines of code using test containers. I have a container request describing what image I want to start. The ports I'm interested in. So in that case, I'm only interested in bold ports. I don't need the HTTP ports or anything else. I override the authentication with those credentials, so username, password, which are constants, I guess, or maybe not. I know they are parameters, my bad. And there is this nice utility. There are several ways to wait for a container to be ready. In that case, there is some built-in facility to scan for logs. And if I see bolt enabled in the logs, that means that the container is ready. So hopefully that log won't change too much. If it does, then we might have some issues waiting for the container. So that's just the description of what I want, but the fact that the container starts is due to this specific function here, generate container. I give it a request and I say I want it started immediately. And with that, it will automatically wait for Bolt to be ready, and I will get a running container with everything. And yeah, and then I will get my driver and my test will execute properly. So we're gonna reuse the same thing here for the login part. And the login test is ready, the implementation is not. I mean, mostly ready at least. And so yeah, so let me go back to Postman just for context. What I want to do here is a login. I give same user key at the top level, email password, and I expect a token, a username, email, and maybe some extra stuff, which is not necessarily, I won't necessarily do it today, but at least those three attributes. So I'm using the same structure as before. Open the session, close it before the test ends. Write transaction, because this time I create a user manually and I expect the login with that user to work. And so I should find a user with the email, and I expect the password I gave for login, and that also used for the persistence. I mean, there is just a hash here done. I expect those passwords to match. So that's my test, and that should be ready. The HTTP stuff has already been done, so I'm not going back to that. But basically, that should do it. So let's run, and because I'm only interested in that one, so the support in the IDE, so I'm using Golang from JetBrains, could be improved. It's nice enough, but I still have to do this kind of manual things. I cannot run individual tests with the UI, right? You don't see any shortcut here to run this particular test. So what you have to do instead is using the syntax of Ginkgo, which is very inspired from Jasmine, for instance, or other testing libraries. The F means focus, doesn't mean anything else. And so if we run this test, it should fail because the implementation is not ready at all. So let's see what happens. So compiling the project. So see, it will run only one of 4 specs because that's the only one that is focused at the moment. And you can see the logs for test containers. It will start not only Neo4j, but Ryuk, and Ryuk or Ryuk, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is a kind of garbage collecting image. It will make sure that the image you start for your test will be killed afterwards. You don't have to code anything for that. That's the role of Ryuk here. So basically, I don't have to stop the Neo4j image myself. It will detect that somehow that the image is not used anymore and will kill the image for me. So if yeah, we could even try, but yeah, maybe I don't have much time for that. But you could watch Docker PS during the test execution. You will see the 2 images popping up, and then at some point Neo4j will stop after the test. You don't have to do anything. And as you can see, there is a panic because we have not implemented anything. So yeah, basically we're there. And what we want to do is try to find users by email and clear text password. And before I go to that, I forgot one little thing. I mentioned that I upgraded to the latest beta, so beta 2 of the driver after the last live stream. The only difference I've seen so far is that when you call new session, there is no error anymore. So I just had to fix the extra variable assignments, and that's it. That's the only difference I've seen. So my colleague Peter could explain in a lot more details what changed, but that's the only change at the surface I saw. So let's look at the test the last time just to make sure we have the whole context. I have an email, clear text password. I insert manually in the DB because the DB is fresh and new and empty every time I run the test, which is a bit slower than having the database run only once per package, but for now it's a simpler thing to do. So I'm just gonna stick with that. And I run the query, giving the email, the hashed password, because the database does not store clear text password. I mean, that's an implementation choice, of course, but I mean, that's a quite common security measure to not store clear text passwords, and hopefully you're also doing that at work with some solid enough hashing algorithm. And so yeah, so okay, so I guess I got it. I've got a user with a username, email, and password using, you know, the Neo4j 4 syntax for parameters with a $, not curly braces anymore, and I should see, yeah, I should find this. So let's try. Let's try to fix that, and let's not panic. Let's not panic anymore. Let's be serene. And so Theodore, yes, the session is recorded. I mean, except 2 weeks ago because I failed miserably, but usually the streams are recorded, so no worries. You can always catch up at any time. All right, so what I want to do now, I still need my driver, so I'm probably go use that. I need to open a new session. For now, I don't need any particular session config, but let's go with it. So I've got this session. I always need to close it. And for now, I'm gonna do exactly like above. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna do like above basically. I'm gonna name, you can use named, I don't like that syntax too much, but for this specific case, I use it from time to time. You can use name variables. Oh yeah, except you need to name everything. Okay, that's not great, but we'll do with that. So it means that whenever you have these available variables, that will be used as a result. You don't need return explicitly in that case. And why I do that? Because when I close the session, when the function stops, the enclosing function, which is called find by email password, when it stops, it can return an error. And I don't want to ignore that, right? If there is a problem closing the session, I want to get this error when I call find by email password. So in that case, that's how I'm gonna do. I'm gonna overwrite the value of whatever is in the error variable. There might be, again, a smarter way to do this, because if there is an error before that, I don't want to lose it either, right? The way I'm doing it right now is a bit simplistic, because I overwrite any potential error before that, and instead I should probably compose them, right? Say, hey, there's been an error with the read transaction and also the session close, not only the session close. So, but for now, keeping it simple, let's not overcomplicate the code. So now I've got my session. Find by email and password, as the name suggests, is probably just about reading stuff. So I need this transaction work, and transaction work actually is just an alias to a function that takes a transaction, returns. So that's the most generic type. You know, there is no generics yet in Golang, and probably won't be before a while. So the most generic type we can have is interface, which is the same as object in Java, for instance, because you can return any kind of data or an error. So that's why the API is like this, basically. That's the most generic type we can return. And so for now, I'm just gonna do something quite similar to what I've done before, which is delegate that to a method being just a special function that's got a receiver on a struct, which is exactly what happens here already. So let's say find user, just gonna give the transaction, the email and password, and we'll see how we'll deal with that. That should give me, hopefully, my user an error. We'll see how in a moment, but I like, to write a skeleton of what I want to do and then complete afterwards. And actually, yeah, I don't even need that. And I can, I guess, just do this. Probably not needed, but yeah, okay. It's not happy. Oh yeah, because I need to cast it, right? That's the only issue, because there is no generics in Golang. We have to force the cast. So hopefully I can do something like this. I don't remember exactly the syntax. Oh no, I don't remember the syntax. Okay, so let me try to do it in 2 steps. So let's call it result. That's the joys of live coding, right? I'm clueless in life. So yeah, let's have this result dot user, I guess. We'll see if that blows up. That's my user. And something like this, hopefully that works. No, not happy. Cannot assign user to type user. Oh yeah, of course. That's a bit painful, but let's do that. we will improve it afterwards. And then I want, oops, okay. Maybe there is a way to inline it to keep it short. Yep, no, not really. Okay. So it seems to be, the compiler seems mostly happy. So now the only part left is to implement this find user. So let's do that. Transaction, because I need a transaction to run statements. Then interface and error. So I'm just, yeah, right below persist user, that's perfect. And this time I can use run directly. All right, so what do I need to do? I need to match a user. And for now, what we can do, so we return the user. And what we can do is match by email, check and check the password if the password match afterwards. Otherwise, it might be a bit complex because again, the encrypted strings might not be the same, but they might relate to the same password. And so I don't want to do that in Cypher. There might be a way, but right now my brain tells me no. So I'm just gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna match by email and then afterwards make sure. And if the password don't match, I will just return nil. And I need, so one thing here to notice, which might be a bit different with other drivers, it depends. You have to specify a map whether you have parameters or not. So even if it's an empty map, you still need to do this. But in my case, I need the parameter, so it's all right. So that should give me a result and an error. If the error, so the legendary if error is not nil, I can just return nil and the error. Otherwise, I expect, yeah, let's have the happy path here. I expect a single result. Emails should be unique, hopefully. If not, that will blow up, but let's not be too defensive right now. So same as here. And finally, I've got this record. And what I want to do is first make sure the password matches, right? So I've got this the clear text password here. I've got an hashed password from the database, and I would probably need to do something like this. If passwords match. So the clear text password is this one. The hashed password is something like, oops, I need to get it first. Record maybe. So I need the password. And that should give me the password, hopefully. Yeah, for now I'm going to be sloppy and skip this, but I assume the password is there. If we have a look at return the value corresponding to the given key with a boolean that is true if a value was found and false if not. Let's be sloppy for now, and maybe that's good enough sloppiness here. I assume that it's always found. Anyway, I guess otherwise I will get the default value for a string, I suppose, so the password wouldn't match anyway, so that's probably fine. Cannot assign interface. Oh yeah, except password is already taken. My bad. So hashed password instead. And it's a new variable, so using this. So now I want to make sure they match. Hashed password. And rather, if they don't, I return nil. And we'll see. Probably nil. So no user, but no error. Just that there is no user matching this. Else I will return a user. And I'm going to be lazy here, so let me make sure it what did I do here? Result. Actually, it's user. So that's a good news because now I can just do that. And that. Yeah, I'm gonna return a pointer to the user directly. And I can be a little more specific here, I think. And yeah, because that's my own function, right? And nil. Yeah, so hopefully at least this signature is a bit more meaningful, and it still works with the outer one, which is generic from the driver API. I mean, sadly there is not much better we can do, right? We don't have generics, so, but at least, you know, the compiler is happy, and my find user is hopefully clear enough that it returns a user. All right, so I need a username, which would be, let's see, which would be the same as before. So the same record get, so I will have to do like this. Again, I'm going to be sloppy here. Don't do this at home. Username, just going to ignore. Same with, so email, I believe we already have it, so we can ignore it. And password, we probably don't need to return the password. All right, so we just need this basically. We don't need to return the password. So I should maybe use two different structs for registration and login, but I'm just doing the editing here. And I need to cast it as a string, I think. Yeah, hopefully that works. Because again, no generics, so every type is typed to the most generic type possible, which is this interface, which is basically types that match every other types. That's why we have to cast here. So okay, so I've got more or less what I want to do. The last thing to do, which is very similar to something we did in the test already. Ooh, and some Java reflex from me. Oops, let's remove the parentheses. We need basically this one, hash password, which is a string, so the compiler is going to complain. Yes. So casting this, and it will tell me whether the passwords match or not. Because again, just encrypting the clear text password and comparing it to the hash password won't do, because they might not be the same. And I'm going to be super lazy. I'm just going to do what we do in the test, which is, because we use bcrypt for generating the password, as you can see below. And here I just compare this one and this one. So let me see, is that consistent, right? It's comparing hash and password, and here password matches clear text and hash, and here it's hash and clear text. So maybe let's refactor so the order is not reverse. And I'm gonna rename this to clear text password just to be extra explicit. Yeah, so there is no zigzag here going on. Hashed first, clear text second. And yeah, okay, that looks hopefully good. We'll see what the test says. But I think implementation-wise, we are doing quite good. So we query, so the find by email and password calls this find user. And whatever the find user returns, an error or the user itself, we will get it there. Cast it. Yeah, we have to cast it for the compiler, basically. At runtime, it's already a pointer to a user struct, but just for the compiler to be happy. And yeah, that should work just fine. I mean, we'll see what the test says. We'll see if the test agrees with me or not. So let's rerun the test now. Hopefully we will... Oh, wait a second. What did I do here? I'm checking the passwords. I probably don't want to do that. I don't want to return the password. I don't need to. So let me remove that. So I expect the user to be found and the email to match. So yeah, rather that's probably more than enough. Email and probably add the username just for completeness. And username is what? Is flow right here. So I'm just gonna duplicate it here. Yeah, that's probably more than enough. I don't want to return the password if I don't need to, and I think I don't need to in that case. If the login works, it's I don't need the password anymore. So let's see what happens. So test container starts up. So that's why, again, it's a bit slow. It's for integration tests only. Don't use it for unit tests. And I might want at some point to move this container startup and tear down to once per package instead of once per test, but we'll see that later. And of course, it never works on the first time. Interface is nil, not string. Okay, so something went wrong. Let's see where. So that's my test. Thank you very much. And I guess, you know, my conversions are a bit sloppy. Let's see. Hashed password. Let's, oh yeah, of course. So what do I need? I need username and password, right? So I'm just make my life easier and do it like this. Just because it's easier for me. Doesn't mean you cannot return full nodes, right? It's easier for me to reason about when I have simple values, but that's really a matter of convenience and personal taste, I would say. So that way I have the username, password, and that hopefully should be enough. And it's especially convenient when you're live streaming and your brain is not that when there is a stress factor going on, let's say. So yeah, let's go for convenience for now. Maybe not production grade quality code, but something that works. And oh, yay, it passed. Yes, great news. It passed, but oh, see, there is a failure. So as I told last time, because I focused one test and I didn't run the 3 others, Ginkgo will say, oh, sure, your focus test passed, but the suite failed. Because you don't want to commit partial execution of your test suite. So that's why when you run the test and you forgot to remove the focus stuff, it will fail. So that's a good safeguard to prevent you from committing you know, incomplete tests. So yeah, that's why you have this report here saying it failed, but the test I was interested in worked. Okay, and because we have some more time, I will do the other, not an edge case really, like a nominal use case, which is I log in with the user that does not exist. And in that case, it will be even easier because I don't have to insert anything in the database. The database starts empty, I can log in with anything I want, and it should just fail. And for now, logs, maybe does not log. Sorry for my English here, inexistent is probably not the right word. Non-existing, let's say, user. So in that case, it will be super easy, as I was telling you. I don't care about this. I can reuse the same stuff. Error should be nil, and user event should be nil. And hopefully that should work as is. So it's not, you know, academic TDD here, because the test will pass already, hopefully. So it's code I have already written. So yeah, not academic TDD. My former colleagues would scream at me. No, I'm just kidding. User, so user should log in is probably not the right phrasing here. Login should not fail. Login should not fail is probably better, so I'm going to reuse that phrasing also for the other tests. And user should not be found. Something like this. Okay, not the greatest phrasing, but I guess hopefully you get what I'm trying to say here. Hopefully it should work already. So I have this email, and actually we can inline it because we don't really care. And oops, what happened? What? How did I break the other test? Maybe just a Golang bug. Yeah, okay, some weird thing happening here. Yeah, so that should be enough. So why is it red all of a sudden? Why did I lose some? Okay, for some reason, I guess an import went away for reasons beyond me. And Neo4j, what's going on here? So let's keep this. And let's try to rebuild. Maybe just to run. We'll see. We'll see if this Golang is just going rogue on me. Yeah, it's just going rogue. Nice. Just some fake news of you know, compilation errors. Those are not true. It compiles. I mean, if it runs, it must compile, right? Unless I'm missing something obvious here. And interesting. So yeah, I'm happy I actually wrote the test because there is something wrong going on, which is, yeah, okay. So which is not too surprising. Like in Java, null is not an instance of anything. So here nil is not an instance of user, so I cannot cast it. Yay for test. So sorry for this parenthesis. So if the user is nil, I don't know why it's not happy. Oh yeah, because it's result. Thank you, Golang. If the result is nil, I just return nil. Yeah, it should probably be, or maybe error, because we never know. It might be nil because there's been an error before. So let's be safe and return the error. Otherwise, we can probably, oh no, yeah, I'm using named parameters, so I have to assign user before doing that. All right. So hopefully that should fix it. Still no idea what it decided, why Golang decided that all of this does not compile where it actually compiles, but you know, that's the joys of live coding, right? That hopefully should not be too bad. And let's see, let's start the container again, run the test, and hopefully this time it should pass. And yes, nice. So I think, and we will see that with Postman in a second, that the login is complete, which would bring our second endpoint out of 31. But at least, you know, making progress, slow and steady progress. It's better than no progress at all. So yeah, we're getting there. So nice. So I believe this is done. Repository as the implementation, and the handler is already handling it. If we look at this, we also have, oh, we don't have this login handler registered anywhere. So that's something I need to do. I could test drive it, but frankly, I mean, I would do it for a real app, but that takes time and that's not super interesting. So I'm gonna be sloppy. You know, that's my trademark by now. Sloppy driven development or something. So I'm gonna create another handler for the main function. Otherwise, the login handler will never you know, kick in. So I need this user login handler. And field. The path should still be, let's see, what is the path? users/login, and it's still a post, okay? So /users/login. User repository in that case is a kind of a singleton. I don't need to, you know, reinstantiate one. So users repository. And as a side effect for now, driver happens to be a singleton as well because it's used only there. So that gives me a second handler, which will be my login handler. Not sure why I use a long form with var here. There is no particular reason. So let's go with a short form. And as here, do for now something as simple as that. All right. And why is it not happy? Because it needs a pointer and not the struct itself. All right, so now we have our registration. Let's rename this because user handler is a bit vague. Registration handler and login handler. And we both pass it to our HTTP server, and that should be all right. So yeah, still have no idea why Golang pretends that my test does not compile, just to make sure, just to prove that this is fake news. Let's run an actual compilation. So here I'm just compiling every package. I could actually, this should be equivalent to this because I'm using every package transitively, so that should be the same, and it compiles. And if I run the tests, oops, well, in CMD that, Oh yeah, no, everywhere. That in the way tests are a bit different. So build with transitively fetch every package that is in use. Test, you have to specify every package, so I'm using the short form. There is no test in the conduit. That's something I could improve, but you know, testing main functions is always a bit troublesome, so that's why I try to keep them as trimmed down as possible. And then I will run the HTTP test for the handlers and the repository test with test containers, etc. So it might take a while, but I just want to make sure that Golang is lying to me and that everything compiles. And when this is done, well, we'll just make sure that it works in Postman, and hopefully that will be the case, because we have only 10 minutes left. Yeah, I'm not sure what's taking so long here. That's a bit strange. Let's see. So first, let me... Yeah, whoa, 43 seconds. Yeah, that's quite a lot. Yeah, maybe with -v you get some more details. Not that I want to restart everything, but we should see a little more. Yeah, 43 seconds is a lot. That's why, again, I would probably... And I will continue to work on this project, but not live streaming it anymore. I will probably move the container stuff, you know, to run once per package, because I don't want to start a container for every test. That takes basically way too long. All right, but anyway, the test run, it compiles, so thank you, Golang, for, you know, pretending it does not compile when it does. Hopefully I already have a configuration baked in for this, so let's see. I already have some environment. No, really? Maybe here, yes, with a very secure password, so never use that for real. So I should have a local instance, and actually I just realized I don't, so what I'm gonna use is Neo4j Desktop, this time for the live application. Let's start it. Oh, and I realized I just lost my connection for a few seconds, so that might have, you might have lost my stream for a few seconds, but hopefully it's back. So please let me know if there is still issue going on right now, but hopefully it should be back. So I have this Neo4j Desktop, which is really nice, and now I just need to find my database in there, which is this one. And there is one node already, which is nice because I will be able to test the login directly. So let's see. And let's open it with Neo4j browser. Let's make sure of the content that's in there. So user, and return the user. There should be hopefully only one, because we tested the registration endpoint last time. And there is one, yay. And if we want to look, so we have this email, and except I don't remember the password, but hopefully it's still in Postman. Yeah, because that's an encrypted password, right? I cannot guess it back. But yeah, that's my email, Florent at example.org. Some encrypted password. Hopefully it's still in there. If I look at the request body, oh, very secure. Here we go. Very secure password, right? What's your password? Well, it's very secure. So yeah, let's start the application and try to log in, and if login works, that will be super cool. And if not, well, we'll have only 7 minutes to fix it, which might be too short, but we'll see. Enough talking, let's start the app. Not go test, thank you, just the main with the environment variables that are already set to point to my local instance running through Neo4j Desktop. So it's running. There is no logs. Maybe I should add some log like, hey, it's running on port blah blah blah. So that's something I could do. So API URL is like here on localhost 3000. And the body is what? The body is Florent at example.org. The password, well, it's a very secure password as we've seen. And okay, let's breathe a little while, cross fingers, and hope burn candles if needed, and hopefully it should work. And what do we get here as a response? We got 200 okay, and we got, yay, a username, an email. Oh, except the case. The case is a bit strange. So I will have to check that, because I think the case should be lowercase. But apart from that, it works fine, right? We have a token, username and email. Nice. Okay, so let's try to figure out what's going wrong with the serialization. And serialization should happen at the handler level, right? Not the repository stuff. So JSON Marshall, why are you doing this? I'm so disappointed. Oh, of course, because I forgot the JSON annotations. So of course it's not gonna work. So I just need to fix that. So even manual testing, you know, it can help from time to time. Of course, the more automated, the better. The more units and the faster it is, the better as well. But it's always good to check in real life. We never know what we miss in automated tests. But that's something I could add in the test, actually. Something I should check the serialization, but given the time we have left, I won't do it right now. I will do it later. And hopefully, if we restart the application, we should have the properly serialized JSON. So let's try again. And so remember the token here. Just for fun, we're gonna keep it around. It should be a different one as well. Otherwise, there is something probably broken. So let's have a textplain disposable file here. That's my token before, and if I rerun the same thing, still with the same password and email, yay, okay, the case is fixed. And is the token the same? It looks a bit similar, but I don't know. Maybe not. Oh no, it's different. Or is it? Huh. No, it's not. Okay, so because some parts of the token are common, right? There is some parts that don't change, but the end is different. So that's all I wanted to see. Okay, cool. That's cool. And what happens if I try to log in with an account that does not exist? So either because the password don't match, that's the first thing. So let's see. Maybe it will blow up because I guess I didn't. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I need to manage the nil case, but okay, that's the first thing. This one should probably, hopefully, no, maybe it will blow up as well. All right. Yeah, maybe something I forgot here because I just decided today that I would return nil. So if the user is nil, what's the best way to do that? So I'm gonna be sloppy and do something like, I don't know, if user is nil. And I'm even sloppier here, I ignore the error, which is not nice, but parentheses. I'm not thinking too much, so yeah, 204, like no content, maybe not the right thing, or bad request or whatever. For now, I just want to see it, and we will refine it later, right, to find the proper semantics. I don't need any specific write body, so I'm just gonna stop there. So let's restart. Stop and rerun. Yes, thank you. We'll see about the proper HTTP code, right, later. Just at least I don't want the application to blow up just because the login attempt fails. And let's resend this. Yeah, bad request. Okay. Maybe not the right code. I cannot think straight at the moment, but hopefully that's enough. And if I try again, very secure, hopefully it still works. Yeah, and if a wrong password. Okay, bad request. All right. We'll see about that. We'll refine it later. And you know what? That's it for today. That's it for realworld.io. So I hope you enjoyed the ride with me for the past 5 weeks. And next week, I will have the pleasure to live stream with Eric Solander on a nice little Golang library called GoGM, which is a community Golang object graph mapper. Then Eric is here, by the way, here. That's Eric. And we'll discover together what Golang Object Graph Mapper does, so GoGM or GoGum. And we'll see you next week. And in the meantime, I will continue to work on this realworld.io and try to complete it. You know, I have what, 29 endpoints left? Easy, right? So thank you for joining this session. It was my pleasure to lead it from Paris, France, and I will see you hopefully next week to talk about GoGum and GoGM. And if you have any specific subjects you want me to cover, starting next year, after the GoGum series, feel free to suggest it. And yeah, again, thank you. Have a good day, have a good evening, have a good night wherever you are. Stay safe and stay tuned. Bye-bye.